Kanne is a third-class sorcerer who joins the First-Class Mage Exam in Äußerst. Though she doesn't pass the final stage, unable to imagine herself as a first-class mage, she remains skilled enough to maintain her third-class rank and could one day reach Calamity class level. In the first stage, she ends up in the second party with Frieren and her best friend, and occasional rival Lenge. The clearest demonstration of her talent is her signature spell Water Manipulation Magic, Reimstrohar. Kanne can control large bodies of water, which makes her extremely strong when it rains or when she's near rivers or lakes. The main weakness is that she cannot create water on her own, so she relies heavily on the environment. However, her terrain advantage is so high that she can command a Calamity class mass of water, and even Frieren says she cannot imagine beating a mage who controls water in the rain. Her biggest moment of struggle came from her weak mana detection, which allowed a Geisel to ambush her. In the anime, she uses Zoltrak whenever there is no water around, proving she can adapt her fighting style when needed. Another strong example of her skill comes from her teamwork with Lenge. Interestingly, Elf Granny is impressed by how naturally Kanne and Lenge work together, saying their perfect synchronization already shows a high level of coordination. Lenge. Going down the list of third-class mages all the way to the greatest mages of legend, Lenge is a mage who specializes in ice magic. She comes from a well-off family with 3 older brothers who spoil her, but she still gets compared to them all the time. The clearest demonstration of her ability is her elemental ice magic. Lenge can manipulate the water around her and instantly freeze it. The scale of her magic is impressive, because she can freeze an entire lake without struggle. Lenge graduates from the same magic academy as her best friend Kanne, and even though she fails the First-Class Mage Exam after being taken out by Sensei's clone, she's still shown to be a skilled and capable mage. Her biggest offensive spell is Arrows of Ice, Neftir. Lenge creates a circle of large ice spears around her body and fires them like a continuous barrage. But according to Richter, who experienced the spell firsthand, each shard is actually frail in terms of firepower. Interestingly, Lenge's eldest brother was part of the advanced team the Continental Magic Association sent to raid the Tomb of the Ruined King. Thanks to him, she got insider info she could use during the second stage of the exam. Sharf. One of the sorcerers who failed the test, Sharf is a third-class mage who joined the First-Class Mage Exam as part of the 8th party with Weibel and Era. Even though he is self-taught, lacking fundamentals, and bad at sensing mana according to land, he still brings a unique fighting style to the exam. The best example of this is his steel petal conversion magic, Yubil. This spell basically transforms flower petals into steel and lets him control them to penetrate the opponent's defenses. In the anime, he takes this a step further and creates an entire field of flowers at the start of a fight, giving himself a large supply for Yubil. When he fights in places with little plant life, Sharf carries bouquets, so he always has petals ready. Lofen. Lofen is a third-class mage, and Denken sees her as a novice mainly because she struggles to hide her mana traces when casting magic. But that doesn't mean she's weak. Against Spiegel's clone of Mito, Lofen fights her on even footing, and even calls the fight easy. Considering the fact that Mito eventually becomes a first-class mage, that's already a great feat. Her fighting style comes from her spell, Jilwa. According to Frieren, it's a high-speed movement folk spell from a mountain tribe in the southern countries, and it lets Lofen move faster than the eye can follow. The downside is that this spell leaves behind traces of her mana, which lets mages like Frieren track her easily. In the anime, Lofen also uses her staff in a different way by turning it into a long, flexible whip. Lofen's biggest strength comes from her agility. She also uses ordinary offensive magic like Zoltrak without any trouble. The moment that shows her personality the most happened before Frieren finally caught her. Basically, Lofen refuses to run away because she does not want Denken to be hurt. Throughout the exam, she ends up basically becoming Denken's granddaughter. Era, a second-class sorcerer, is the granddaughter of a first-class mage, someone we'll get to later in the video. As a top graduate of the Academy of Magic, Fern considers Era the strongest mage in both the 4th and 8th parties. Era's biggest strength is her mana. She has a much higher mana output compared to most mages her age. Even Fern assumes from the start that she can completely overpower both Weibel and Sharf in a contest of mana alone, which already says a lot about her raw ability. One of her main spells is Duragate, also known as Rock Pellet Conversion Magic. Using flight magic to stay in the air, she levitates small rocks around her and fires them like cannon bullets. During her fight against Fern, Aira fights mid-air and tries to break through her defenses using Duragate. But the longer the fight goes on, the more uneasy she gets because Fern fights with the control and precision of a veteran mage. Something that reminds her far too much of sparring with her own grandfather. When she was young, Aira's northern village was attacked by demons, and Weibel happened to be one of the people who saved her during that incident. Richter. Richter is a second-class mage who ends up failing the First-Class Mage Exam. As a mage of his caliber, Richter easily overpowers both Kanne and Lewine and only loses once they get access to a massive amount of water after Frieren dispels Serie's barrier. Richter's speciality is Earth Control Bogland, a spell that lets him weaponize the ground itself. He uses this to deal heavy physical damage, something basic defensive magic can't block as effectively as normal spells. Outside the exam, Richter owns a magical repair shop in Äußerst. He's famous for being able to repair any staff, no matter how broken it is. For instance, he was able to fix Fern's staff which Frieren herself thought was impossible to repair. Adel. Adel is a second-class mage who specializes in hypnosis magic, something her whole family is known for. But despite having a rare talent in mental magic, she has almost no combat ability. Against Frieren's clone, some examinees thought Adel might be able to counter it by slipping past its mental defenses. According to Mito, Adel could exploit any weakness in the clone's mind if it had one. But in the end, that plan was useless because the clones created by Spiegel don't actually have minds to manipulate. Adel's hypnosis magic lets her control someone's actions simply by making eye contact and giving verbal commands, as long as they are within her line of sight. A certain first-class mage, who we'll get to later, considers Adel an expert in this field. Even better than most first-class mages when it comes to hypnosis. Just a quick disclaimer, I'll be pulling details from the manga from here on out, so anime-onlys beware. Another spell that Adel has is the ability to read and transfer memories. She can pull memories from both humans and demons, which is supposed to be nearly impossible because demon memories are painfully overwhelming and mentally damaging. Despite that, Adel managed to read the memories of Macht, a greater demon. When Frieren found out Adel absorbed 100 years worth of memories with just one touch, she was genuinely impressed. Those memories also helped Frieren analyze and break the curse of El Dorado, and were a huge help for Denken's investigation of the Golden Land. On top of that, Adel can transfer memories from herself to someone else, or the other way around. Adel can also analyze and repair items that contain hypnosis magic, but the restoration time depends on the complexity of the restoration process itself. Fuh. Fuh is a second-class mage from the Continental Magic Association. Within that group, she and the other second-class mages are said to be as skilled or even more experienced than Tao, a first-class mage we'll get to in a second. Lernen sends Fuh's squad to scout the Golden Land ahead of the main operation, but the moment they ran into Max, it was over. According to Fuh, the only one Max decided to spare, she didn't even get a second to cast a spell. Her whole team was wiped out before anyone could react. And right after she finished reporting what happened, Max turned her into gold on the spot. Tao. Since we've already mentioned him, Tao is a first-class mage and the commander of the El Dorado preliminary investigation that Fuh and her second-class teammates took part in. Even though he's young, he's already seen as an elite mage with plenty of combat experience. Bly. Before we get to the rest of the first-class mages, there are a few participants in the First-Class Mage Exam whose ranks haven't been revealed. Bly is one of them. During the fight against Sensei's clone, Adel mentions that Bly can't picture defeating Sensei at all, and that he isn't suited for combat inside the dungeon. When it turns out the clone has no mind, making Adel's magic useless, Bly chooses to stay behind and buy time so Dunster can escape. Eventually he breaks his escape bottle golem, fully committing to helping his teammate get away. For spells, Bly is shown using fire magic during the first stage of the exam, trying to melt the lake Lewine froze. Like most mages, he can use defensive spells too. In the anime, Bly and Dunster use mana-based telekinesis through their staffs to lift and hurl massive rock slabs at Sensei's clone. Dunster. One of the members of the 17th Party, Dunster is a mage who specializes in modern magic. But like Bly, he isn't much of a fighter and struggles to handle his spells well inside a dungeon. One of his biggest moments comes when he's forced to work with other examinees. Since both he and Kanne perform poorly inside the ruins of the king's tomb, mainly because modern magic doesn't work well in dungeon battles, they're grouped together to take on Richter's clone. Sadly for Dunster, Serie ended up failing him in the final stage of the exam. Tone. Tone is a mage who joins the same First-Class Mage Exam. According to the official fanbook, he's known for being a lone wolf, and he prefers walking alone unless he sees a clear advantage in teaming up. The best example of this is when Denken suggests that all the mages should team up and clear the dungeon together. Tone immediately shoots the idea down and chooses to go alone. That choice pretty much sealed his fate. When he ran into the Spiegel clones of Weibel, Scharf, and Era, he had to flee using a golem, and that escape ended up costing him the entire exam. Lenge. Lenge starts the test in the first party with Mito and Tone. She's known for being a bit of a bookworm, and during the second stage she's one of the few mages who's actually willing to work with Denken. Unfortunately, Lenge ends up trapped in a small room separated from everyone else after being attacked by gargoyles. Her only option is to shatter her escape bottle, which eliminates her from the exam almost instantly. Yubil. Yubil, aka Best Girl, is a first-class mage and basically the only Sukuna you see in Frieren. Yubil enjoys sending someone to the graveyard. She has this belief that a mage's special magic is shaped by their personality and past, and it's the same idea that lets her copy spells from people she understands. More on that in a bit. One of the clearest praises of her talent came from Zenzen, who pointed out that Yubil is a genius with a type of visualization that ignores normal logic. Her biggest disaster happened during the second-class mage exam. The examiner was the immovable cloak Berg. The mission is to try moving him, but Yubil cut straight through both the cloak and Berg himself. Because of that, she was instantly disqualified. Yubil's main spell, the nigh unstoppable cutter called Railseiden, allows her to slice through trees, buildings, or almost anything as long as she can picture herself cutting it. Because the spell moves with a trajectory no one can follow, defending against it is almost impossible. The moment that showed this most clearly was when she shredded Zenzen's hair like paper. Zenzen's hair used a complex defensive technique, but Yubil treated it like normal hair and cut through it with no trouble. Another thing that makes Yubil powerful is that her magic reacts differently to formless techniques. Although Yubil is vulnerable to their effects, physical spells can be twisted and rejected depending on what she visualizes. That's why she can still cast magic on others even while restricted. With her spell copying technique, Yubil can copy other mages' magic by empathizing with them. After understanding Weibel's feelings, during their battle, Yubil copied her binding spell Sorganil. Along with this, she's strong in close combat and can use her staff like a spear. Yubil passed instantly during the interview with Serie. After the exam, she followed Land to try and understand him better, with the ulterior motives of, you guessed it, copying his magic. Her childhood explains where all of this came from. You see, Yubil grew up poor with her older sister, and spent her early years watching her sew. She became obsessed with the smooth way scissors cut through cloth and the sound they made. Now, as a first-class mage, Yubil was granted the privilege to get any magic she desired. With the spell she originally wanted already taken away, Yubil wished for a magic spell to locate her older sister. Yubil takes on missions from the Continental Magic Association, and her current job is serving as one of Serie's bodyguards. She traveled all the way to Land's village to make him her partner, because Serie specifically told her to team up with him, for reasons I'll explain in a bit. Of course, Serie also told her not to drag him into it by force. But Yubil didn't exactly listen to that part. Land is a first-class mage who managed to pass the entire exam without even setting foot in the examination grounds. After losing his parents at a young age, Land was raised by his grandmother. Their time formed most of his early life, especially because both of them were persecuted by the magic special forces. Even after he attended a magic school in the imperial capital, Land stayed with his grandmother until she passed away. Her last request was for him to stay by her side, and that wish became one of the main reasons he refused to leave his village again, at least until Yubil dragged him out. Things became more interesting for Land when Serie paired him with Yubil. Serie believed the two were compatible, saying that if Land wanted to turn his cautious nature into a weapon, he needed to learn how to hold Yubil's reins. One of Land's biggest moments of growth came after passing the First-Class Mage Exam. As a privilege, he requested a spell that could help him locate the remains of his parents so he could finally give them a proper burial. But when Serie brought up the imperial capital again, Land made it clear he wanted nothing more to do with those memories, showing how deeply that place still affected him. The clearest demonstration of his skill is his talent for concealing mana. Land can hide his presence so well that even the magic special forces failed to notice him. Only Yubil for some reason can still find him. Additionally, Land can detect mana across long distances, as shown when he sensed a busy marketplace from the top of a tower far above it. However, the best example of his power is his clone magic. Land can create near-perfect duplicates of himself and control at least 2 clones from far away. Land can also copy objects like the escape golem bottle or iron chains, though the duplicates don't retain the same magical effects. Even as clones, harming them still affects him, as seen when he protected his copy's neck from Iris. Another powerful spell was shown when Land used an electric spell during battle. By touching his opponent directly, he could paralyze them for a short time. He also showed the use of a telekinetic spell when he grabbed Iris's needles mid-fight and threw them back at her. Weibel. Weibel is a first-class mage and the captain of the Northern Magic Corps. Serie herself said he's the strongest combatant she has ever seen among all the second-class mages. The moment that convinced Serie to pass him was simple. For Weibel, magic is a tool meant to kill. You see, Weibel grew up in a remote northern village once visited by Himmel's hero party. As a boy, he loved their stories and even idolized Himmel, though it felt strange to him. The elders in his village never focused on Himmel's epic battles and instead talked more about the simple side quests the party did. Following Himmel's death, Weibel finally understood why that was the case. From then on, Weibel wanted to help anyone he could. When he was 4 or 5, Weibel had a childhood friend he liked. Before she moved away to escape growing demon attacks, he told her he would wipe out the demons to impress her. Even though he no longer remembers her face or name, that promise stayed with him. Basically, Weibel wanted the privilege of choosing the magic he desired so he could better protect his village. This special magic is hinted to be powerful enough to destroy even more demons. The strongest showcase of his power is his signature spell, Sorcerer. The best example of how it works is seen whenever he freezes his target in place. It locks their body completely and cuts off access to their mana. But Sorcerer has one rule: Weibel must keep the target's entire body in his line of sight. If even a single part goes out of view, the spell breaks. Mito. Mito, a first-class mage, is an all-rounder with a wide range of spells. Most importantly, she passed the final stage of the exam because she thought Serie was cute. Mito comes from a clan on the northern plateau that is dedicated to demon elimination, and that background shows in the way she fights. When things get serious, she moves with a reckless style. With her restraint and hypnosis magic, Mito can judge how resistant someone is to these spells just by getting close to them. During the second stage of the First-Class Mage Exam, she wraps Frieren in a hug to try to read her mental defenses. However, her magic failed to affect Frieren at all. According to Mito, this spell should work unless the difference in mana is huge. Her spell works on Fern though, which shows that Mito's restraint magic is still very strong, just not on the same level as Adel's mental magic. Another important part of her skill set is her ability to use the magic of the goddess through holy scriptures. Though Mito is not a priest, she can still cast simple recovery magic to heal injuries. By reading the corpse's wounds, she can do a basic autopsy and figure out how they were defeated. Mito's versatility shows again with the spell Erefrata, a demystification magic she uses to dispel fog. She breaks through the fog control spell, Mebeladora, only after fully analyzing it. And she does this while fighting the demon girl at the same time. Luckily, or maybe unluckily for Sign, Frieren rejected Mito's request to join her party after they dealt with the demon General Revolte and his subordinates. Gennau. Gennau, a first-class mage, was the proxer of the first stage of the First-Class Mage Exam. Shown to be a cold and distant man, many people have died because of the path he chose to bring peace to the northern lands. The clearest insight into Gennau's view of people comes from his thoughts on kindness. He sees kind and friendly people as foolish, especially given the dangerous missions mages face. For example, his former partner died trying to save a child from Revolte, a foolish but glorious act in Gennau's eyes. Ironically, he later performed the same act himself. The best example of his power is his signature spell, Act, which forms a pair of yellow wings. Also called the black wings of steel magic, they're sharp enough for close combat, sturdy enough for defense, and give him extra mobility. Additionally, Gennau can control birds for scouting and information, and he can sense the moment his birds are attacked or restrained. Because the original church barrier had been destroyed during the demon attack, Gennau sets up a stronger barrier around the corpses so monsters cannot approach them. Zenzen. Zenzen is a first-class mage in charge of the second stage of the First-Class Mage Exam. She calls herself a pacifist, but in all 4 exams she's proctored, no one has ever managed to pass. The most impressive demonstration of her power came during the second stage of the exam, when her Spiegel clone was seen as one of the biggest threats. Zenzen is skilled at concealing her mana to the point that even powerful mages like Mito and Frieren could not easily detect her. She can even suppress it so well that a mana-sensitive Stieler can land on her. The best example of what sets Zenzen apart is her signature magic. She can freely control each strand of her hair, and because she needs to visualize every single one, her imagination is considered superhuman. Her hair is layered with magic, letting her move each strand freely, so she can slice through defensive barriers and hit multiple targets at once. And because her hair counts as part of her body, restrictive spells from mages like Yubil and Weibel do not work well on her. After passing the First-Class Mage Exam, Zenzen asked Serie for a spell that would help her sleep. Crushed by the guilt of sending someone to their eternal rest, this spell lets her sleep peacefully. Falsch. Falsch is a first-class mage who can move through shadows. Basically, he can hide inside a shadow and pop out whenever he wants. He can bend the shadows around him so he or the target stays hidden, wrapping them in a cloak. After passing the First-Class Mage Exam, Falsch asked Serie for a spell that could change his voice. The thing is, he specifically asked for it so he could mimic Serie's voice. During the National Foundation Festival, Falsch was assigned to protect Serie. Lineal, another first-class mage, had warned them about an assassination plot planned for the Grand Bull in the Imperial capital, so Falsch and Zenzen acted as Serie's personal bodyguards. Even though they're mages, their skills are effective against warrior-class enemies, making them perfect for the job. Berg. Berg is a first-class mage from the Continental Magic Association, known for his talent in defensive magic. He was so skilled that after becoming a first-class mage, he was never injured even once. Berg's greatest achievement was creating his own immovable cloak, loaded with defensive spells strong enough to block any offensive magic. But when he faced Yubil, who was still a third-class mage at the time, Berg was accidentally isekai'd to the afterlife. Lernen. Lernen is a first-class mage, a former Imperial mage, and one of Serie's apprentices. In the history of the Continental Magic Association, he is the very first mage to ever reach first class. Aside from being the grandfather of Era, Lernen is also known for valuing Adel's mental magic more than anyone else in that aspect. Serie once said that even as a boy, Lernen was timid but always reliable, and she always saw potential in him. The clearest example of this came when he was able to notice the instability in Frieren's mana restraint. But despite all his talent, he still could not sense Serie's true mana pool. One thing to note is that Lernen cares deeply for Serie. The only reason Lernen wasn't assigned as one of Serie's bodyguards in the Imperial capital is that he was banished from the palace over half a century ago. One of Lernen's biggest moments came when he decided to create a legacy for himself by challenging Frieren to a duel. His skills as a mage are shown most clearly through his golem magic. The best example of this was during the second stage of the First-Class Mage Exam, where the escape golems he built performed their job. These golems could nullify dungeon traps, heal and protect examinees, and rescue them from danger. They can block powerful attacks like the hair drills from Zenzen's clone, and can heal serious wounds. Lernen can also use more powerful and larger battle golems, like the one that protected him and Adel during their battle against Macht, one of the 7 Sages of Destruction. Additionally, Lernen can cast an offensive spell similar to Zultrak. It easily broke through Frieren's defensive magic, and he's capable of firing multiple beams at once. One of Lernen's most significant achievements was choosing to seal Macht, preventing Serie from killing him. With 5 other first-class mages, he created a massive barrier around the entire city, sealing Macht for decades. This barrier was a mixture of magic theories from many cultures, and only someone with deep knowledge of human magic could break it. For example, a weird demon who studies human magic like Solitaire. And you know what? Solitaire might be one of the most powerful demons outside the 7 Sages and the Demon King. Want to see if she's really the strongest? Check out this video on the deadliest named demons in Frieren. Interestingly, Lernen and Denken have been close friends for many decades. When Lernen was expelled from his position, Denken was the only one who defended him until the end. Lernen swore to repay that loyalty by helping him investigate the fortress city of Frazzier. Denken. Denken, an Imperial Mage, is a first-class wizard with deep roots in the Weisse region. As a young teen, Denken lost both of his parents in demon attacks and was raised by Gluck, the feudal lord of Weisse. For him to get stronger and exact his revenge on the demons, Denken was trained under Macht, the same Sage of Destruction who later turned his hometown into the Golden Land. As a mage, Denken is the definition of a seasoned veteran. Having the position of a mediator between the Empire and the Continental Magic Association, Denken knows how to navigate politics and naturally becomes the strategist for his group due to his experience. One of his powerful spells is Wild Gozer, where he summons a tornado that wraps around his target. The moment that showed his combo skills the most was when he followed up that tornado with Wind Becomes Hellfire, turning the surrounding wind into blazing fire. He also uses Catastravia, a spell that summons countless arrows of light that explode on impact. On top of that, Denken has mastered Zoltrak to a point where he can fire a highly concentrated version straight from his hand. However, Denken's path to power started from something personal. Tragically, his wife Lecter was born with a frail body and often fell sick, which pushed Denken to join the Imperial Army so he could earn the status needed to stay by her side. But before he could gain the power to help her, Lecter passed away. Consumed by grief, Denken avoided returning to Weisse for a long time. When Macht finally turned the city of Weisse into the cursed Golden Land, Denken learned that only first-class mages could enter the city now, so he took the First-Class Mage Exam. For his reward, Denken asked Serie for a spell that would help him face Macht. She granted him the curse reversal magic known as Mistilciella. Because Die Goldse is a curse, Mistilciella worked against Macht, although it was not enough to defeat him by itself. The real cost of this spell is its massive mana consumption. It uses as much mana as creating a full omnidirectional defense barrier, meaning the caster can only use it a few times before running out of mana. Lineal. Lineal is the Continental Magic Association's long-term spy inside the Empire. She's been undercover for more than 15 years. Her personality stands out the moment Yubil meets her at the Northern Branch, where Lineal is giving her a 3-year report to Serie. Interestingly, even Yubil considers her a weirdo. Yubil says that after handing in her report, Lineal spends the entire day staring at butterflies in the garden. According to Zenzen, Lineal hates anything troublesome, and will save her own skin if things get dangerous. The two of them do not get along at all. Zenzen goes so far as to say that the next time she sees Lineal, she'll tear her to shreds. Even with all that tension, Zenzen still admits that when it comes to fighting humans, she does not know any mage stronger than Lineal. The clearest example of this is that Lineal once forced Serie to her knees in a practice match. Naturally, her work as an informant is just as impressive. Lineal gathered intel on the profiles of the Shadow Warriors, information so heavy that Zenzen believes Lineal might have already been dead the next time they meet. Fern. Fern, a first-class mage, is an orphaned war refugee from the southern lands. Richter took her in when she was young, and before his death, he entrusted her to Frieren. She's basically Frieren's mom at this point, since she's always the one waking her up, feeding her, and even helping her get dressed. Most importantly, Fern is one of the few mages capable of actually killing Frieren. In battle, Fern uses a long wooden staff wrapped in purple ribbons, a gift from Richter. Fern treasures it so much that she got angry when Frieren told her to just buy a new one. From a young age, Fern already had crazy talent when it came to mana control. Her talent in mana detection, shown when she noticed the instability in Serie's mana, was also recognized by Serie. Serie passed her immediately, and even tried to recruit her as an apprentice, saying Fern could reach levels no other mage ever has. Of course, Fern declined the offer. Just like Frieren, Fern is amazing at concealing her mana, and she's been doing it since she was a kid. Fern can sneak up on people easily, as she even caught Lagner off guard for a surprise attack. Frieren herself admits Fern is hard to detect when she's concealing her mana. Even though she has less mana and her techniques aren't as refined as those powerful ancient mages like Frieren, Fern makes up for it with her quick casting speed. That's why Frieren usually lets Fern handle monsters. Being a natural at it since birth, her main offensive spell is Zoltrak. Fern can fire multiple blasts in rapid succession, increase their density, and even compress them into a highly condensed shot. She injured the greater demon Zolitaire with this, and ultimately landed a decisive blow from outside Zolitaire's detection range. Once Frieren told her not to use other offensive magic, because Zoltrak alone is already more than enough in her hands. Naturally, that doesn't mean Fern is incapable of casting other spells. For instance, she uses a spell that lets her see through clothes, allowing her to spot hidden weapons or whatever she was referring to when she pointed out that something on Stark was small. Additionally, Fern can make objects float, using bird capturing magic, and perform many other spells she's learned from Grimoire. Finally, there's a legendary clothing cleaning spell from the mythical era that Serie gave her as a reward for passing the exam. If you ask me, if Serie was satisfied with Fern's request, let's just say it served as Frieren's payback for being banned from any Continental Magic Association facility for the next 1,000 years. Frazzier is the captain of the Empire's Magic Special Forces, the group made up of the strongest mages in the entire Empire. As the leader of mages trained specifically for war, a force usually mobilized to suppress revolutions, she has served in the Special Forces for over 50 years. According to Land, these mages have the strength to topple an entire country. As the commander of that group, Frazzier is unbelievably powerful. When she was younger, Macht said she was strong enough to destroy the entire city of Weisse on her own. Macht found her so dangerous that he asked Gluck for permission to eliminate her, saying she was too strong to be just an envoy and too big a threat to leave alive. Politically, Frazzier is known for being a sly fox. Denken and Gluck both describe her as a schemer because her true intentions are always hidden underneath something else. She always says that everything she does is for the Empire's eternal prosperity of magic. And if she believes her actions will help the Empire, even if it goes against Denken's original plan, or even the Emperor's orders, she'll still act on her own. In Chapter 144, Serie told the Emperor, whom she reached through a precognitive dream, that she had defeated Frazzier in a fight. Although Frazzier dies in that simulation, Serie admits it was a close and enjoyable battle. Kanne. Kanne is the vice-captain of the Empire's Magic Special Forces, making her one of the strongest and most trusted military mages in the entire Empire. She has sharp mana detection skills. This is shown clearly when she sensed the fight between Land, Yubil, and the Shadow Warriors from afar and immediately reported it to Frazzier. As vice-captain, she follows Frazzier's orders and is fully prepared to enforce the Empire's laws. Despite her serious role, Kanne also shows a loyal side. She always carries the exact pack that Frazzier likes, even though she doesn't smoke herself. Kanne is also very respectful when dealing with the important figures like Denken and Gluck. Though it was considered unwanted advice, she tried to convince Gluck to save himself by placing all the blame for the Golden City incident on Macht. Noi is a member of the Empire's Magical Special Forces. Just like the rest of the unit, Noi is recognized as one of the strongest mages in the Empire. Noi's main fighting style revolves around a mana-driven telekinesis spell that acts almost like gravity manipulation. According to Yubil, Noi's control of this magic is so strong that he can lift and launch massive pieces of buildings with terrifying speed. So fast that even Land, who's extremely skilled at mana detection, can't sense the attack in time. Additionally, Noi used a mysterious version of telekinesis during his fight with Yubil that allowed him to use spells despite his mana being restrained by Sorcerer. In Chapter 139, Fern described the sensation as being like the sound of a flying insect, which made Yubil realize that the faint presence she felt earlier wasn't just her imagination. This is connected to Noi's ability to cast a sensory blocking spell that shuts down sight and mana detection at the same time. Yubil describes it as being able to see in a physical sense, but unable to actually process what her eyes should be seeing. Aside from Noi, there are other members of the Empire's Magical Special Forces who are on the level of First-Class Mages, or possibly even stronger. Recognized as some of the strongest and most powerful mages in the country, other members include Vek, Lager, and Grau. But, like Kanne and Frazzier, their abilities and main spells haven't been revealed at the time of creating this video. Emperor. The Emperor, a human mage, is the ruler of the largest magic-using nation on the continent. During the Foundation Festival, he's pulled into Serie's prophetic dream. But instead of being trapped or overwhelmed by it, the Emperor appears there as a controlled version of himself. According to the Emperor, his character in the dream is just a mental projection protected by the Empire's strongest magic. A defense system so advanced it filters his thoughts and lets him choose exactly what information he shares. Because of that, even inside a prophetic vision, he can't be forced to reveal anything that would endanger the Empire. Considered the Emperor's biggest advantage, this mental defense mechanism is a masterpiece born from 1,000 years of Imperial magic research. It activates automatically and blocks any attempt to invade his mind or extract secrets. Though he is the caster, the Emperor admits he doesn't fully understand how it works. On top of that, the Emperor owns a magic item meant to distinguish dreams from reality. He thinks it's some kind of clairvoyance tool from the mythical era, but Serie immediately shoots that down, saying it's actually one of Flamme's silly trinkets. Even though she knows the real effect, Serie chooses not to explain it. Aware that the Empire is starting to fall, and of the assassination plot against Serie, the Emperor proposes a deal, a sort of cooperation where they freely exchange vital information. Evig the Sage was a legendary human mage from the mythical era. Known as one of the greatest minds to ever study magic, he played a big role in pushing humanity's magical knowledge forward, and many of his discoveries shaped how magic is understood today. His grimoire are famous because people believe they contain secrets about immortality and resurrection. Being from the mythical era, Evig encoded these books with images instead of regular writing. But after going through them, Frieren realized that none of these immortality spells were actually recorded in the book. On another note, Evig also documented everything he knew about the Spiegel in the form of heroic tales, which is why his stories are still studied centuries later. Most of Evig's major spells haven't been revealed in the story yet, but we do know he was exceptionally skilled in hypnosis magic. The best proof is the Stone Bracelet of Servitude, a magical item he designed that lets the wearer be forced to obey commands. It's the only known item in history capable of manipulating a demon's mind. Even after all these centuries, the bracelet placed on Macht still works perfectly, which shows how powerful and precise Evig's magic really was. Minas, also known as Minas the Witch, was an elven great mage whose actions changed the fate of the southern countries. About 20 years before the main story, she was convicted of high treason for causing an endless war across the region. Her story became even more infamous after she was taken down by a nameless warrior from a small, remote country. The best example of Minas' power comes from the sky-piercing column of light that wiped out Lerve's hometown overnight. Despite the level of destruction it brought, the hellscape that formed was described as mere collateral damage. Her magic was just far too powerful for human mages to control the situation anymore. Flamme. Known throughout history as one of the greatest mages to ever live, Flamme was Frieren's mentor. She was also an apprentice of Serie, who took her in when she was just a child, simply out of a whim. Even thousands of years later, the barriers Flamme created are so powerful that demons today still can't break them. Some were even powered by the life force of giant, ancient trees, allowing them to survive long after Flamme herself was gone. Against demons, Flamme doesn't hold back, opting not to fight them directly, but to outsmart them through deception. Even though she loved magic deeply, she was willing to suppress her mana every second of her life just to gain an advantage in destroying them. Obviously, Flamme mastered mana concealment to an incredible degree. Her control was terrifyingly precise that even demons, who are naturally sensitive to mana, were tricked by her fake mana pool. Considered the founder of humanity's magic, Flamme built the largest magic-using civilization on the continent. Flamme wanted to create an era where anyone could use magic freely, and because of her talent, her spells are still more advanced than most magic used today. Her favorite spell was a simple magic that produced a field of flowers. Flamme's parents taught it to her when she was young, and it was the spell that made her fall in love with magic in the first place. Aside from barrier magic, Flamme was also incredibly skilled at golem creation. She created a cooking golem during the Unified Empire era that was tougher than metal and could act on its own. And it wasn't just cooking golems, as there were military versions too. Alongside many magical items she created, these creations showed the peak of magical advancement during Flamme's lifetime, an age she essentially built with her own hands. When Basalt the Throne attacked Frieren's village, Flamme was the one who saved her from the verge of death. Flamme believed in Frieren completely, enough to tell Serie that Frieren, a mage from a peaceful age, would be the one to kill the Demon King. Understanding Frieren better than anyone, Flamme predicted that Frieren would eventually make a painful mistake and want to see someone she had lost again. Something that came true when Himmel died. Interestingly, Flamme left behind a grimoire filled with notes about a place called Oriel, a location in the far northern lands that humans call heaven. It's said to be a place where you can meet the souls of the dead, and Flamme herself had gone there to speak with her old comrades. She protected the grimoire by planting a sapling beside it and enchanting it. Over time, that sapling grew into a giant tree that guarded her notes until Frieren eventually visited the place. Serie. Serie is a great mage from the mythical era, often described as a living grimoire. Being the head of the Continental Magic Association, her magic knowledge is so vast that she's considered the mage closest to the omniscient and omnipotent goddess. However, even Flamme, who respected her power, believed Serie couldn't defeat the Demon King, not because she was weak, but because Serie was a warmonger who couldn't imagine a peaceful age. More than 50 years before the First-Class Mage Exam that Frieren and Fern joined, Serie began gathering veteran mages who survived the long war against the Demon King's army. She created the ranking system and made a promise that anyone who reached First-Class Mage status could request any magic they wanted. Because Serie is practically a living library of all magic known to humanity, she can transfer spells directly to others if she chooses. Serie constantly suppresses her mana, yet even in that restrained state, it rivals Frieren's fully released mana pool. Her control is so perfect that mages who can sense the instability in Frieren's mana can't detect a single flaw in Serie's. The only human who has ever noticed the slightest disturbance in Serie's mana pool is Fern. Serie can also erase her presence completely, as shown when she infiltrated the city of Weibel without Macht noticing her at all. Naturally, Serie has mastered countless spells. Her barrier magic is so advanced that a week before the first-class exam, she created a massive barrier around the test area that blocked even water and dust. She also possesses transfer magic, known as Fjävöria, a spell that lets her hand down any magic she knows. When she uses it, a grimoire appears containing her knowledge of the spell. Anyone who reads it instantly learns the magic, even if it should have been impossible for them. The trade-off is that Serie forgets the spell after giving it away, but due to her genius and long lifespan, she can relearn it whenever she wants simply by studying it again. As the one who granted first-class mages their special privileges, she was able to use those spells herself too. According to Serie, what people call clairvoyance is usually just a precise forecast created by combining different spells, not true future seeing. In the past, she kept multiple versions of future sight magic, which she later handed down to first-class mages, starting with the most reliable spells. One of her most interesting abilities is her prophetic dream spell from the mythical era. Fully aware that her assassination at the Grand Ball will succeed without her knowing the culprit, she forces the Emperor into her prophetic dream, where they exchange information. Over the centuries, Serie has taken many apprentices. What makes her even more impressive is that even after thousands of years, she never forgets any of them. She remembers their personalities, their favorite spells, and everything that made them unique. Frieren. Frieren the Slayer is the mage of the hero party that defeated the Demon King. Long after Himmel's death, she begins traveling with Fern and Stark so she can reach Uriel and speak with Himmel one more time. As Flamme's best apprentice and a powerful member of the hero party, Frieren is said to have destroyed more demons than anyone in history. On top of that, her mana is overwhelming. When she releases it fully, she has more mana than Aura, a 500-year-old demon who is one of the 7 sages of destruction. The clearest example of her skill comes from her mana concealment. Flamme trained her to hide her mana so well that demons fell for it instantly. Because she spent centuries limiting it, even experienced mages cannot detect any instability in her mana. Only 2 beings have seen through it at first glance. First is the Demon King, and second is Lernen. However, one small weakness has followed her since she was young. The instant a spell touches Frieren, her mana detection breaks for a split second. It's something that usually happens to apprentice mages, yet it has stayed with her for ages. Of course, everyone knows her true greatest weakness is mimics. Frieren's main offensive spell is Zoltrak. She helps develop this spell, assisting human researchers in adapting Qual's killing magic into a weapon designed for fighting demons. But because the spell is still relatively new for a long-lived elf, her reactions to it are slightly slower than to older spells, making it hard for her to dodge it. As one of the great mages, Frieren's set of offensive spells also includes Destructive Lightning, Judregim, where she sends several lightning bolts from her staff, and Hellfire summoning Voltsambel. Her Spiegel clone also used a spell that creates a black hole. During her fight with Zolitaire, Frieren also copied Zolitaire's mana strike on the spot and fired it right back at her. But her strongest technique is something Fern calls the Height of Magic. When her clone uses it, no mana can be sensed at all. The target cannot even understand that a spell is being cast. The effect pushes the opponent back with a force strong enough to pin Fern to a wall and shatter her staff. The trade-off is that the caster becomes completely open afterward. Frieren mentions she has not used this spell in about 80 years, hinting she needed it in the final battle against the Demon King. In addition, Frieren maintains a layered and complicated mental barrier built on an old spell formula, which allows her to resist almost every type of hypnosis or mind control magic thrown at her. After spending 2 months studying Max's Curse, Frieren created a spell that nullifies it completely. That protective magic makes Daigoltse useless the moment it touches her, which Frieren then uses to ultimately undo the Curse of the Golden Land. Outside of battle, Frieren is still very much an elf who has lived for more than 1,000 years. As you already know, her sense of time is absolutely terrible. She stays in bed late, forgets schedules, and is often lazy in a way that forces Fern to act more like a mother. Frieren also loves collecting grimoire and magical items. It does not matter how strange or useless the magic is. Before she helps someone, they must offer it in exchange. After years of doing this, she's gathered an enormous number of spells. Ones she may now need to use to try and stop the assassination plot against Serie. And that just leaves the demons. In Frieren, demons are one of the strongest races, capable of reducing human power to a fraction of what it was before the war waged by the Demon King. It's even more terrifying knowing that all of this started from the Demon King's wish to coexist with humanity. Known for their arrogance in magic, the strongest greater demons have immense mana reserves built up over hundreds or even thousands of years. To put it into perspective, Fern is at least 50 years too early to take on opponents like that on her own. But since I've already covered all of them here, click the video on your screen to learn more about the powerful magic casters among every named demon in Frieren.